We're talking about Congress, man. Congress. Not the president. No, not the president. Congress. All right, today, like you can tell from the intro a second ago, we're going to talk a little bit about Congress. And the purpose of this video is to go through Article 1, Sections 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to examine the role of Congress in American government, and we're also going to discuss where that idea of bicameral legislature comes from, and the two houses of Congress, and their qualifications, and their roles, and the leaders, and all of those types of things, which are all outlined here in the Constitution, this pocket Constitution, and I highly recommend you get one, by the way. And we're going to go through those first three sections, Article 1, Sections 1, 2, and 3 today. For those in my class and for anybody else interested in this kind of stuff, hey, Jack, we're here. Let's do some learning. All right, so the logical thing to do, obviously, is to go through the Constitution in order, starting off with Article 1, Section 1. Again, this video will go through all three of the first sections of Article 1. And then we'll continue on in later videos to discuss the other sections of Article 1, and hopefully I'll get through the entirety of the Constitution throughout a whole series of videos. So, and hopefully they'll stay a little interesting as we go. But anyway, starting off, I'll talk about this. My students, you've seen this guy before, my little pocket Constitution. Highly recommended you get one of those. It's interesting, you run into people who have these ideas about the Constitution, but they've never really read it. So I would recommend you get one, just so you can kind of actually read the Constitution, see what it actually says out there. Anyway, moving on, now I'm off my soapbox. Let's go through and read Article 1, Section 1. It's really short, so I think we should just read it in its entirety. It says, right here, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. Now that's big concepts there. That's really short, a short statement. But the basis for our Congress and the reason that it is there and how it's made up are all listed right there. So it's a very significant portion of the Constitution. It doesn't outline any powers so much, of each house, and it doesn't tell specific powers, but it does do one thing in particular. It does say that Congress has the legislative power of the United States government. So what does that term mean, legislative? What is that legislative power? Well, just to go back, this should be old news for you, but basically legislative powers are those powers that they have to make the law. They have the power to make the law. That is their job as the legislative branch, as Congress, is to make the law in our government. Okay? So that's the purpose of having that branch of government. And the other two, the executive and the judicial branch, each have their own purposes, which we'll talk about later on in more detail. But remember, the executive branch, their job his job, the president, I say he because there's never been a female one to this point, but is to enforce the law. And the Supreme Court, the judicial branch, is there to interpret the law. So keep that in mind as you move on, and that's a basic for any EOC test. So anyway, moving on then. Let's move on to, also it creates a bicameral legislature. It says that the Congress will consist of both a House and a Senate, House of Representatives and a Senate. So that's the basis for the two houses that we have. It creates that bicameral legislature. And later in another video, we'll talk about the reasons for having those two houses. So what is a bicameral legislature? Another term, I take for granted that everybody knows it. My students, hopefully at this point, have an idea. Those of you out there watching this, but basically, it is a two-house Congress, a two-house legislative branch. So you start off here. Okay, you've got two houses in Congress. Put them together, you get Congress, and then it turns into two houses, bicameral legislature. So we have a two-house Congress, bicameral legislature. If it was a unicameral legislature, what would that mean? I mean, do you think of a unicycle? How many wheels does a unicycle have? It's just got one. So a unicameral legislature would be one house legislature, which we do not have, but some countries do. All right, and why do we have that? Just a basic outline. I said I would go on with it in another video, but let's just go through that now. Basically, we have that for a couple of reasons. Obviously, number one, two real good reasons here. Number one is that it settled the problems that we had in the Constitutional Convention and settled the differences we had between the New Jersey and the Virginia plans. Remember the New Jersey plan, the small state plan? You know, they wanted everything to be in Congress to be based on equal representation. Therefore, the House that came out of that plan was the Senate. And in that House, every state has 2 members, which we'll discuss later on. So keep that in mind. Also, the Virginia plan, the other plan that they came together with, that great compromise, that awesome great compromise, the Connecticut compromise, as they call it, is the House of Representatives. And representation there is based on population. So the larger states, remember, the larger states are going to want more representation. So the larger states get their representation based on population in the House because of the compromise that we made between the New Jersey and Virginia plans, and we created this bicameral legislature. Second reason is another example of checks and balances and separation of powers. Obviously, you break up the power of the Congress, which in the Federalist Papers, they realize that it is supposed to be and is pretty much given the most power of the 3 branches. So in order to keep one entity from taking complete control, it made sense to break them up as well and give them their own sets of powers. So in a nutshell, Article 1, Section 1, what's it do? Yeah, it creates the Congress, gives them the legislative power, the lawmaking power, and then divides it into a bicameral Congress with a House and a Senate. All right, Article 1, Section 2 deals all with the House of Representatives. Basically, in the next 2 sections, in Sections 2 and 3, Section 2 about the House, Section 3 about the Senate, it's going to outline the qualifications to be a member of the House and the Senate, and also who the leaders of the House and the Senate are. So let's go through those real quickly, Sections 2 and 3, and discuss what you have to do in order to become one of those people. So with the House of Representatives, Article 1, Section 2, the Constitution says 3 things, okay, the 3 qualifications, 3 things you need to keep in mind are age, citizenship, and residency requirements. So for the House, you have to be 25 years of age according to the Constitution. You must live in the state which you are elected from, and you must also be a United States citizen for 7 years. Okay, and the Senate's a little different. The qualifications in the Senate are a little more stringent, it's a little more difficult to become a senator. You have to be 30 years old, so they want you to be a little more wise to become a senator. You have to be a 9-year citizen, so a little longer of citizenship, maybe the traditions and ideas of the United States a little bit better that way. And again, you must be an inhabitant of the state. Okay, so those are the qualifications for both the House and the Senate. Outlined again, Article 1, Sections 2 and 3. Also, in those same sections, you have the leaders they are determined according to this section. So in the House, the leader of the House, according to the Constitution, is the Speaker, and the Constitution basically says that the members of the House of Representatives shall choose their officers. The main officer that you really need to know for any test, any exam, anything like that of the House is the Speaker of the House. Right now, it's always a member of the majority party, the party that is in charge. Right now, in 2013, we have John Boehner in charge. He is a member of the Republican Party. Republican Party has control of the House of Representatives right now. And the Speaker of the House basically dictates what happens in the House of Representatives, who can speak, when they can speak, all those kinds of things. So he's a very powerful person, obviously. Okay, in the Senate, it's kind of different. It's a different setup, and the Constitution in Article 1, Section 3 provides the 2 formal qualifications of the Vice President. One of them being not qualifications of the Vice President, but the job, one of the 2 roles, the jobs of the Vice President. And the Vice President, his number 1 job is to preside over the Senate. Now, or to be the President of the Senate. Obviously, that person is never there. The Constitution also says, though, that he does not have a vote unless there is a tie. So the Vice President does have some control over the executive or the legislative branch. Another example of checks and balances there, being a member of the executive branch in Congress, basically in the Senate. But as we all know, majority of the time, Vice President has other things to do. He is not present at the Senate. So while he is not there, the Congress also says that the Senate must choose from their members a president pro tempore of the Senate. So that is the person that is in charge when the vice president is not there. All right, so now we've learned a little bit more about Congress, man. Haven't learned too much about the president. Congress. A couple things, just go back over them. We learned that they have the legislative power, the lawmaking power. We've learned that we have a bicameral legislature created by Article 1, Section 1. Two houses, one the House of Representatives, the other is the Senate. You've learned the leaders. The House of Representatives leader is the Speaker. The Vice President and the President pro tempore, in order, are the leaders of the Senate, according to the Constitution. And the qualifications for those two houses. For the House, remember, you've got to be 25 years old, 7-year citizen, and an inhabitant of the state from which you are elected. And in the Senate, a little more stringent, 9-year citizen of the United States, 30 years of age, and also an inhabitant of the state. So I hope you all learned a little bit, or at least hopefully it was a good review for you at this point. So take care. See you later, alligators. Not the president. Congress, man.